Hello friends, welcome to Star Explainer. Tales of Herding Gods Part 397 explains based on novel. So let's start explanation. Qin Mu turned his head around to look, only to see Lian Huahan striding over. She must have followed Luo Wuang and his trail all the way here. However, the weather and sky within the Golden Desert were unpredictable, and there were also many strange things there. She probably encountered several strange occurrences within the desert, and was thus a few days late in discovering this final gathering place of the masters of creation. Yes. Qin Mu wasn't humble at all. He shifted his gaze away from Lian Huahan and looked towards the void bridge. With a calm expression, he continued, "There is no longer anyone in the great void who can threaten me. Not you, Celestial Empress, and not Mistress Qin Mu." The reason he didn't continue to watch Lian Huahan was that Lian Huahan's appearance resembled Celestial Empress and Mistress Qin Mu a little. She had a slender waist with a large chest, and when she walked, she was as graceful as a leopard, with her waist and bottom looking very firm. It was all very attractive to him. Could Celestial Empress be aware of what I like? Qin Mu was shocked. She is quite well researched on me, targeting my weakness. Yet, I don't know much about her. He was, however, unaware that Celestial Empress hadn't transformed into Lian Huahan to target him. Instead, she was trying to evoke Celestial Venerable Hao's affections for his mother. It just so happened that her appearance as Lian Huahan had also matched Qin Mu's standards of beauty. Qin Mu suppressed his strange thoughts as he continued to stare at the void bridge. There, Celestial Venerable Shu was truly stuck. Although she was powerful without limits, she was facing a dangerous situation at the end of the void bridge. The void bridge was made up of disjointed segments, and towards the end of the bridge, the parts that were broken off were even longer. If it was merely the void getting destroyed and collapsing on itself, it wouldn't be able to trap Celestial Venerable Shu. However, the void there would also shrink and collapse. Not only that, when it reached a maximum point of collapsing, there would be terrifying strange explosions as well. It was as though the void was breathing through this sort of collapsing and inflating. Yet, between each exhalation and inhalation, beyond the void bridge, there would be countless small universes being born and then destroyed. Their lives and deaths were similar to evanescent light, yet they were still extremely powerful. Even an almost unmatchable existence like Celestial Venerable Shu was having difficulties with every step she was taking at this moment. She was caught in a dangerous situation where she could neither advance nor retreat. Her celestial palaces floated and shook as they were greatly damaged by the apocalyptic sight at the void bridge, resulting in her cultivation being lacking compared to before. Her celestial palaces were opened, not created from visualization. If they were created from visualization, they would be able to be destroyed and reformed as well. She might even have the chance to directly arrive at the other side of the great void. Qin Mu retracted his gaze and thought to himself, Celestial Venerable Shu doesn't know the visualization technique. That might mean that she's not the master of creation hidden within the celestial heavens. A master of creation hiding within the celestial heavens was a guess of Qin Mu's. There were many suspicious points with regard to the death of Celestial Venerable Yun. Celestial Venerable Yun had been killed by a master of creation and had been cursed with the bloodline curse. When Qin Mu helped Yun gently by lifting the curse, he had also encountered that master of creation's consciousness. He had previously guessed that this master of creation was the Grand Emperor. The Grand Emperor had died in the land of the Great Void, yet for a master of creation, the death of the corporeal body and the soul didn't equal true death. Only when the consciousness had perished could that be considered true death. Whether or not the Grand Emperor had changed his complete appearance to live within the celestial heavens, that would then be an unknown. However, judging from Celestial Venerable Shu's situation on the void bridge, Celestial Venerable Shu was most probably not the Grand Emperor. If she was the Grand Emperor, she could have made use of her formidable consciousness to cross the void bridge. Of course, there was also the possibility that she hadn't made use of her true powers so as not to risk exposing her true identity. Lian Huahan walked over, glancing at Luo Wuang, before immediately shifting her gaze to Celestial Venerable Shu, who was trapped on the void bridge. She laughed coldly. Hypocrite. Qin Mu jolted slightly and asked her, "Good little sister, why do you call Celestial Venerable Shu a hypocrite?" "Good little sister." Lian Huahan snorted coldly before replying leisurely, "You dare call me good little sister? I want your head, and no one will be able to save you." She paused for a while before continuing, "Celestial Venerable Shu's true abilities aren't limited to such. Yet, she has been refraining from using her true abilities for fear of exposing her true capabilities to others. She would rather be caught in such a dangerous situation than reveal her true abilities. How hypocritical." Qin Mu burst out laughing. "Isn't Empress like that as well? If you truly wanted to deal with me, you would just have to make use of your true abilities, and I would definitely be utterly defeated." Yet, Empress still went to become a disciple of Celestial Venerable How to learn the technique of the 100 ways to kill Mu. Evidently, you are also a hypocrite. All 10 of you so-called Celestial Venerables, you're all hypocrites. Not one of you is a righteous gentleman. Within the celestial heavens, the righteous gentlemen are all long dead. Lian Huahan revealed a rare smile, and she asked him with interest, "Then, is Celestial Venerable Mu a righteous gentleman?" Qin Mu averted his gaze from her chest and replied with a serious tone, "I am one of the rare righteous gentlemen in the celestial heavens." He couldn't help but take another glance as he said that. Lian Huahan covered up her collar to avoid being taken advantage of again and replied, "There are many loopholes in Celestial Venerable Mu's techniques and divine arts. The remaining 18 ways to kill Mu that I learned from Celestial Venerable How, every single technique is targeted towards a loophole within your techniques and divine arts. It would be difficult for you to avoid death. If you hand over the corpse of that slut sister of mine, then I can spare your life." She added softly, "You remaining alive is very useful to me. However, I want to dig out your eyes. You have shifty eyes." Qin Mu made a mental command, and Mistress Yuan Mu's crystal coffin flew out from the heart of his brows, landing on the ground with a thud. He replied, "It's not like it's anything valuable. Empress can just take it. As for my eyes, Empress can also just dig them out. My creation techniques allow me to reforge even the corporeal body." Lian Huahan was taken aback. Along the way, she had already considered countless possible scenarios, including the various ways that she could use to kill Qin Mu, the expression of disbelief that Qin Mu would have before he died, and the final words that he would say. Yet, she hadn't considered the possibility that Qin Mu would actually so readily retrieve Mistress Yuan Mu's crystal coffin and give it to her. She walked forward, reaching a palm towards the crystal coffin, while also cautiously guarding her back against Qin Mu at the same time. However, Qin Mu was honest and retreated a few steps back. Lian Huahuan's palm slowly reached towards the crystal coffin cautiously, while her gaze remained on Qin Mu. Qin Mu smiled slightly. "Empress, be careful." He had just finished speaking when, behind Lian Huahan, the void tore open and an abyss appeared. A fair and white arm poked out of the abyss. Its 5 fingers were long and slender, and it was in the form of a strange-looking handprint. It was quietly pressing towards the back of Lian Huahuan's head. However, it seemed that Lian Huahan was completely unaware of this. The split second that the fair and white hand reached the back of her head, her figure suddenly vanished. The fair palm struck empty air and immediately retreated. However, it was too late, and Lian Huahan had already come to the side of that abyss, waving her hand and executing a palm into the abyss. "Little slut, you snuck up on me once, did you think you would be able to do it again?" From the abyss came a dull thudding sound, and Yun Chuxiu fell out of the abyss as she laughed. Big sister has learned from her mistakes. It seems that I have taught you well enough that you have become so clever. Although her smile was as beautiful as a flower, her moves were extremely vicious and ruthless. She had activated all of her power from her first strike. Behind her, there were all sorts of celestial palaces floating about, and it was a magnificent sight. Lian Huahan also activated all of her power, and the two young maidens darted about the sacrificial altar's surroundings with unpredictable moves, clashing and colliding with each other in a shocking display of power. Boom! A great hall of the masters of creation was directly evaporated by their divine arts, yet in the next moment, that great hall emerged again. Although Lian Huahan and Yun Chuxiu's divine arts were immensely powerful, and it would be easy for them to destroy this place, everything there was created from visualization, and would thus only return to its initial state after getting destroyed by them. Qin Mu observed their fight, and after some time, he couldn't help but shake his head. Although Lian Huahan and Yun Chuxiu's battle was intense, the abilities that they had executed were only at the level of the celestial venerable Yu weapon. They hadn't executed their true ultimate arts. They hadn't even executed any of their own true techniques, evidently worried that they might expose their own techniques and ultimate arts. It seems that the battle of the sisters won't become any more intense. I guess there's no longer any use in me pretending to comply with them anymore. Upon thinking about this, he reached out a hand and waved. The crystal coffin stood upright, with a clang, and opened up to reveal Mistress Yuanmu's corpse. He closed his eyes to enter his dreams, and immediately, his dreamscape enshrouded the crystal coffin. Hundreds of thousands of teeny-tiny Qin Mus ran out of his mind with quick steps, and leaped onto Mistress Yuanmu's corporeal body. They were everywhere. Some even tunneled into her sleeves and wandered about, studying the markings on the corporeal body of Mistress Yuanmu. Yun Chuxiu was startled by this, and her techniques became disorderly. Lian Huahan immediately caught hold of the resulting loopholes, and beat her until she spat out blood, rolling and crashing through several great halls of the Masters of Creation. Lian Huahan was about to continue her attacks when Yun Chuxiu hurriedly cried out, "Our corporeal bodies hide the secrets of the ruins of End Great Tao. If he manages to study and research them, we will no longer have any secrets from him. I can't handle him, only sister can kill him and take back my corporeal body." Lian Huahan sneered. "After I kill him, you won't take the opportunity to kill me and take back your corporeal body. Sister, you and I were originally born from the same roots. If the great Tao of my corporeal body is revealed, you won't be spared either." Yun Chuxiu's tears fell as she continued pitifully, "You and I will both die with no burial place. If I go up against you straight on, how would little sister be any match for you? Little sister was only able to kill sister back then, because I snuck up on you. Now that sister is on guard, how would little sister be able to do anything?" She couldn't help but let her tears continue to trickle down. "When sister possesses my corporeal body, you'll be in possession of my fatal weakness. I would naturally work like an ox or horse, and be a dutiful servant to sister. I wouldn't dare be disloyal." Lian Huahan glanced at her and immediately flew up into the air and attacked Qin Mu with a divine art technique from the 18 Ways to Kill Mu. Qin Mu had his eyes shut to enter his dreams, yet his person stood up. His 3 eyes remained tightly shut, and didn't open, as he raised his hand to pierce with his sword. Lian Huahan immediately identified the loophole within his sword technique, coming straight through and directly attacking Qin Mu's fatal weakness. Yet, when her sure kill technique reached Qin Mu's side, it was as though it had encountered an invisible barrier that prevented the power of this divine art technique from reaching Qin Mu's body. Lian Huahan was astonished, and she instantly changed her move, executing yet another move of the Ways to Kill Mu. The result of this move was similar to that of the previous move. It was also deflected before it could even reach Qin Mu. Lian Huahan changed her moves continuously, but she was completely unable to near him at all. She couldn't help but panic and hurriedly said, "Little slut, I've already slowed him down, are you still not coming to help?" Yun Chuxiu hurriedly rushed forward, and the two sisters joined forces, encircling Qin Mu like two colorful butterflies fluttering around him. The various divine arts they executed were powerful beyond measure, yet they were still unable to reach Qin Mu. From afar, Luo Wuang watched this sight and couldn't help but shudder. Overlord Body Qin has actually become so formidable after cultivating and becoming a god. His powers are so strong that even the sisters can't break through it. At present, Qin Mu had reached the god realm. Celestial Empress and her sister were merely one realm beneath him, but the difference between Qin Mu and them was similar to having a level of heaven between them. "We can't go head-on against this one, let's escape." Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahan dodged and made their way to retreat. Behind them, they each tore open an abyss and were about to escape. At the very same time, the eye in the heart of Qin Mu's brows opened, and two rays of brilliant light shot out, one after the other. Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahan both fled into their own abyss, but the split second that the abyss closed, the two rays of light entered each of them. The sky suddenly started to bleed, and the two women vanished. The eye between Qin Mu's brows twinkled, and suddenly, he reached out both of his hands into the bloody streak in the sky. He had grabbed Lian Huahan and Yun Chuxiu by their necks, and pulled them out of the void before ruthlessly flinging them onto the ground. Lian Huahan and Yun Chuxiu were both shocked and bewildered. Although they were one realm away from Qin Mu, the difference in their power was way too big. The bodies that they were inhabiting were in the divine bridge realm, and hadn't crossed through the southern heavenly gate. Qin Mu was already a god, making him one realm higher than them. In the past, they had killed plenty of true gods who were two realms above them, much less gods that were one realm above them. For example, Lian Huahan had massacred the disciples that Celestial Venerable Hao had sent to the Great Void to protect the secrets of the 18 ways to kill Mu, and those disciples were all at the true god realm. They were Celestial Venerables, while Lian Huahan and Yun Chuxiu were clones that they used to roam the human world for pleasure. Despite this, gods and true gods weren't able to match up to their clones because, after all, they still had their worldly knowledge and experience. Yet, for Qin Mu, being one realm higher than them was equivalent to being one level of heaven above them. Qin Mu stood beyond the heavens while they remained on the ground. Even the remaining 18 ways to kill Mu were unable to reach him, and they were unable to unleash their powers. From when Lian Huahan started her attack until both sisters got caught, neither of them had actually managed to land a blow on Qin Mu. Qin Mu hadn't dodged and didn't break through their techniques and divine arts, he had merely released his vital qi to shield himself from their attacks. After Qin Mu flung the two of them onto the ground, he immediately closed the eye between his brows. His dreamscape continued on, and there were still countless teeny-tiny Qin Mus tunneling about Mistress Yuan Mu's corporeal body, measuring it and recording the runes of the ruins of End. Lian Huahan and Yun Chuxiu had their cultivation sealed off by him, and they laid on the ground, unable to move an inch. Yun Chuxiu blinked her eyes and suddenly said, "Divine Knife Luo, what are you doing in a daze? Are you not going to hurry over to kill that rebel Qin Mu and then help me up?" Luo Wuang pretended not to hear, but he felt some unease in his heart. These two were two of the 10 celestial venerables. Now that he had directly gone against their orders, he would definitely be labeled a rebellious traitor, and he would never be able to take it off for the rest of his life. I wonder how Qin Mu will deal with the clones of Celestial Empress and Mistress Yuan Mu. Luo Wuang still felt uncomfortable. Overlord Body Qin seems to have some other ambiguous thoughts about these two women. He will probably spare their lives on account of their beauty. Just now, the way he looked at these two women was a little off. These two must die. Otherwise, when they leave the Great Void, their true bodies will be able to learn everything that has happened within the Great Void. The Great Void and the celestial heavens were two different worlds, so everything that Lian Huahan and Yun Chuxiu had experienced here wouldn't be sensed by the true bodies of Celestial Empress and Mistress Yuanmu. However, once they were within the same world, they would be able to obtain Lian Huahan and Yun Chuxiu's memories. If that happened, Celestial Empress and Mistress Yuanmu definitely wouldn't spare Qin Mu and Luo Wuang. They would eliminate both of them no matter what. If Overlord Body Qin has tender, protective feelings towards these two exceptional beauties and cannot bear to kill them, then, I will personally take my knife and chop off their heads. Knife rays sparkled within Luo Wuang's eyes. Yun Chuxiu was a peerless beauty, and her every frown, smile, and action were extremely bewitching. Lian Huahan was another rare beauty. It was to the point that normal men would find it very difficult to resist the seduction of these two women. It was only understandable that Qin Mu would be charmed by the two of them. Yet, Luo Wuang was different. He was obsessed with knives, the knife being the most beautiful woman in his eyes. Before his knife techniques were prim and proper, they were rigid and always abided by the rules. Only a Tao heart as strong as his would be able to allow him to ignore the appearances of these two beauties and attack them without mercy. Qin Mu entered his dreams, while those tiny Qin Mus were busy exchanging their findings noisily in his dreamscape. The speed at which they were studying Mistress Yuanmu's corporeal body was very fast. The type of measurement he did was different from what the Celestial Heavens Tao sect did. When the Celestial Heavens Tao sect measured the ancient gods, they had to measure and map out all of the great Tao runes of the ancient gods, and then measure the structure of the corporeal body of these ancient gods, recording even the smallest detail of the great Tao of the ancient gods and analyzing every single secret within. In comparison, he merely organized the fundamental runes on Mistress Yuanmu's body. It was sufficient for him that these fundamental runes were organized. Despite being very interested in the Great Tao of the Ruins of End, to measure and map out the complete Great Tao of the Ruins of End would take up far too much time. With him alone, even through entering his dreams, he would need at least thousands of years to reach that step. Qin Mu's goal was merely to develop the Ruins of End in his own spirit embryo divine treasure. He would be able to achieve this from gaining an understanding of the fundamental runes of the Ruins of End. Of course, if he were able to obtain the detailed data of Mistress Yuanmu's corporeal body and the rune arrangements of the Ruins of End Great Tao, it would be extremely beneficial towards him perfecting the Ruins of End within the spirit embryo divine treasure. Thus, he intended to let the Eternal Peace divine arts practitioners and gods and devils who were adept in algebra complete the detailed mapping and measurement of Mistress Yuanmu's corporeal body and the Great Tao of the Ruins of End. After some time, Qin Mu woke up from his dream state, and the dreamscape was destroyed. He once again stored Mistress Yuanmu's crystal coffin into his third eye. Then, he looked towards Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahan. The two girls laid on the ground with alluring figures, and it was indescribably seductive. Lian Huahan was ice cold. Upon noticing his gaze, her body froze up, but it was still alluring. Yun Chuxiu, on the other hand, was more open about it. She even purposely made all sorts of seductive poses, biting on her lower lip as she giggled. Celestial Venerable, us sisters can't move about right now. What does Celestial Venerable intend to do to us? Qin Mu's heart stirred, and he laughed. Celestial Empress and Mistress Yuanmu are both so mischievous. Naturally, I will have to put you across my knee and beat your bottoms. Lian Huahuan's face was pale white, while Yun Chuxia wriggled her body about the ground as she giggled. Come and beat my bottom. She was like a fish that had come out of the water, and one couldn't help themselves from wanting to leap forward to grab her. Although Qin Mu knew that it was inappropriate, he couldn't control himself, and had the urge to leap forward and grab hold of her. though he had some hesitation in his heart. I can't spare Celestial Empress and Mistress Qin Mu. However, to strike them down mercilessly, he couldn't help but hesitate a little. At this very moment, a knife ray flashed past, and Luo Wuang had cut Yun Chuxiu in two. Qin Mu was startled. Luo Wuang raised his knife again, and cut through Lian Huahan as well. He wiped away the blood stains on his knife and said with a darkened expression, "Celestial Venerable Mu isn't even 2 years old right now, but these two demons actually dare to seduce Celestial Venerable. Their crimes deserve 1,000 deaths." Qin Mu looked at the corpses of the beauties on the ground, the corners of his eyes twitching as he glanced at Luo Wuang. Luo Wuang continued without any expression, "Celestial Venerable's Dao heart is stable and definitely wouldn't have been seduced by these two demonesses. I have made an unnecessary move. However, these two demonesses belittled Celestial Venerable, and I couldn't help but take out my knife to uphold Celestial Venerable's reputation. I seek Celestial Venerable's forgiveness." Qin Mu mumbled, "Brother Luo, there's no need for this, you can just call me Cult Master Qin. You were right, these two demonesses dared seduce me. I'm skilled in the technique of creation, if I reconnect their bodies, perhaps they may be revived." Green veins appeared on Luo Wuang's forehead, and his remaining hand pressed onto the hilt of his knife as his veins popped out one after the other. He reminded Qin Mu, "Cult Master Qin, the goal of our journey isn't to revive these two demonesses, it's to cross the void bridge. Cult Master Qin, please do hurry and visualize the parameter arc." Qin Mu looked at Luo Wuang's hand, which gripped onto his knife, and laughed. "Brother Luo, don't worry. I'm not a muddle-headed person, and I won't be seduced by beauty. I only wish to revive them so I can uncover their great celestial heavens techniques. I definitely don't have any ulterior motives. Since Brother Luo is suspicious of me, then I'll go and visualize the parameter arc so that we can hurry up and leave this place." He looked at the corpses of the two beauties on the ground again, and sighed in pity. It's still possible to use creation techniques to revive them. What a pity that Luo Wuang, this stubborn man, is too fierce. Luo Wuang noticed his gaze and immediately stepped forward, and threw the corpses of the two women into the void. Qin Mu left with a black face, feeling extremely indignant. "I'm also not a muddle-headed and lecherous man, like the ancient Celestial Emperor. Is there any need to guard against me like that? I merely have a heart that loves beautiful things, as everyone does. Even if I revived them, I wouldn't have any ulterior thoughts. At most, I would just flirt with them a little." Yun Chuxiu and Lian Huahan had already been minced by the destructive void beyond the void bridge. He no longer had any other thoughts, and he started to make use of the ruins of End runes to try and evolve the ruins of End Abyss within his spirit embryo divine treasure. His system of cultivation was unique. Everyone else's system of divine treasures and celestial palaces had a layered relationship where every level was higher than the other. Yet, he only had a single divine treasure, while he had about 14 celestial palaces. What was most crucial was that his celestial palaces were built within his spirit embryo divine treasure. It wasn't like that of other divine arts practitioners and gods and devils, whose celestial palaces existed way beyond the skies. Thus, it was relatively easier for Qin Mu to make changes to the structures of his spirit embryo divine treasure. Very soon, he had created and formed the abyss of the ruins of End, which transformed into the Taiji string of the Taiji diagram. The celestial river flowed down from the Taiji string into Yudu, which was at the bottom of the diagram, transforming into the Ghost River. Although his ruins of End Abyss was very crude, it had connected Yudu, Xuanju, and Yuanju, instantly giving Qin Mu the feeling of his vital qi becoming continuous and inexhaustible. In creating the ruins of End and connecting the three worlds, although his cultivation didn't increase by much, he could utilize his vital qi and consciousness much faster now. Thus, the process of visualizing the parameter arc was a lot smoother. Very soon, he had managed to visualize the general outline of the parameter arc. It was just that it required an immense amount of consciousness. At his level of consciousness cultivation, he had exhausted all of it after visualizing the outline. Qin Mu furrowed his brows. He made use of the time he was recovering his consciousness to enter his dreams and transform into countless teeny-tiny Qin Mus to do calculations on how he could fuse the grand overarching supreme consciousness and the overlord body 3 elixir technique. The process of fusing the grand overarching supreme consciousness was also the process of countless small Qin Mus dying in various ways within his dream. It was extremely tedious. However, the Boundless Calamity Sutra of Brahma Buddha was precisely such a technique, where one would be able to fail countless times, until one eventually figured out the perfect technique. When Qin Mu finally fused the grand, overarching supreme consciousness, and once again utilized the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique to visualize the parameter arc, it was a lot less tedious. The details of the parameter arc took shape gradually. Qin Mu rested dozens of times, slowly completing this enormous arc. Days passed by one after the other. Luo Wuang's wounds healed completely, and he went to find Qin Mu, only to see a large ship that was dozens of miles in length that had been visualized by Qin Mu. He couldn't help but feel incredibly shaken. The parameter arc was an amalgamation of intelligence during the founding emperor era. 2 such arcs had been built. One of them was flown by founding emperor, and the strong individuals of the 33 heavens of the founding emperor celestial heavens under him, and it had headed towards Carefree village. The other parameter arc was forged by Sakra, Li Yuran, along with the heavenly works god race. He had intended to lead his remaining followers and head to Carefree village, but they were attacked by enemies, and the ark was destroyed in the great ruins. The celestial venerables within the celestial heavens also wanted to fix the ark, but its structure was really too complicated. Without a blueprint, there was no possibility of fixing it, and thus they could only leave it as it was. Yet, at present, Qin Mu had actually visualized a parameter arc all by himself. Even if this arc was countless times smaller than the real parameter arc, one couldn't help but gasp in admiration about the wondrousness and greatness of the masters of creation. The ability to make use of one's consciousness to visualize and forge an enormous arc that was of dozens of miles in length was incredible. Finally, Qin Mu had visualized and formed the final component of the parameter arc. On the hull of the parameter arc, a rune lit up, and following it, the billions of other runes on the hull lit up one after the other. The arc gradually floated up into mid-air, resembling a small-scale piece of land. Little buddy Qin, you are already considered a master of creation. From Qin Mu's mind, Shu Jun's voice traveled over as he said sentimentally, in the primordial era, there weren't many masters of creation who were able to visualize and create such a complicated divine weapon. There were countless masters of creation who surpassed you in the attainments of consciousness, but there was only a handful who were able to visualize such a large and complex divine weapon. Your ability to make use of consciousness so wonderfully already surpasses your predecessors. Many thanks to Dao brother Shu Jun for your compliments. Qin Mu boarded the enormous ark that he had visualized and went to the ship's bridge. Luo Wuang followed after him. Qin Mu took out the star compass that village chief had given to him and wore a complicated look on his face. After a short while, he swiped it with his hand. All sorts of sword pictures emerged on the star compass, and they were all noisily broken through by him. Village chief's seal ceased to exist. Qin Mu composed himself and locked the star compass onto the compass of the parameter arc. The massive arc trembled with rumbling noises and gradually adjusted its course, sailing towards the sacrificial altar on the void bridge. Carefree village. Qin Mu looked towards the void bridge with a smile across his face, yet his gaze was filled with complex emotions. I'm coming. Part 397 end here. Thank you for watching.